Welcome to Reinventing the Wheelchair, Inequality and Disability. I'm Barry Dean, CEO and co-founder of LUCI. LUCI is a new startup that is changing the way wheelchairs interact with the world and their users. And we're excited to be hosting this panel. We have three incredible people here joining me today. We have Brooke Mccall, Stephanie Thomas, and Jared Dean. But I'd like to tell you first about Stephanie Thomas. She's the founder of Curatable. She is also the author of the upcoming book, Fitting In, an anthology introduction to the social implications of fashion and ableism. She has served as a fashion disability consultant on shoots and sets all over and done an incredible job over the last 28 years or more, changing the way we see and interact visually and stylistically with disability. Stephanie, could you tell us a little about yourself?
Yes. Hi, Barry, and hello, everyone on the panel, Brooke and Jared. I am Stephanie Thomas. I am a Black female, kind of dark coffee color skin with a brown and blackish head wrap on today. I have on gold accessories, so hoop earrings, gold necklace, black top and blazer. And in the background, you would see to my right over my shoulder, a bookcase, a fan in the ceiling, as well to my left, there is cabinetry to my left. And I'm honored to be here. Thanks for having me.
We're glad to have you. I'd like to turn your attention now to Brooke Mccall. The Technology Access Initiative was something she created at the United Spinal Association. That initiative is bringing tech industry stakeholders and thought leaders together with the disability community to create substantive change in conversation and collaboration. It's an incredible initiative. We've been able to be a guest on some of those, and it's a stunning experience. And Brooke, we're so honored to have you here today. Would you mind describing yourself?
Of course, and thank you so much for having me. My name, of course, is Brooke, as Barry said. I am a white cisgendered woman with blonde hair. I have big kind of cat-type glasses, a maroon turtleneck-type shirt, and behind me I have a blue couch, a few bold pictures, kind of artwork in the background, and some tech equipment on a low brown table. And something no one can see here on this virtual meeting is that I am in a wheelchair. So I'm sitting in a wheelchair because I'm a quadriplegic. And yeah, that pretty much sums it up. I'm looking forward to this.
We're excited to have you here. I'll also introduce Jared Dean. He's the CTO of LUCI. He happens to also be my brother. Jared has over a decade of experience prior to LUCI in product design and systems engineering and patent creation, and also was an educator and creator of a very successful senior design program at the Colorado School of Mines before we launched LUCI. And so, Jared, I'll let you introduce yourself.
Yeah, thanks, Barry. So my name's Jared, and I'm a white male. I'm wearing nerdy glasses, a collared shirt, and a V-neck sweater. I have a bookshelf to my left. I'm sitting in my office, and I have a picture frame to my right of pictures of London.
Wonderful, wonderful. And I'm Barry Dean. I'm a songwriter in Nashville, Tennessee, whose daughter is in a power wheelchair. Our search for finding certain kinds of products that didn't seem to exist and our discovery that innovation wasn't forthcoming led us to start a company. And so I'm still a songwriter in Nashville, but now I'm the CEO of LUCI, and we're excited to be out. We launched in June in the middle of a pandemic. I am a 53-year-old white male wearing a V-neck sweater and a collared shirt. And I'm sitting in front of some, I think, reclaimed barnwood wall with a video monitor that has the logo of our company on it. And I'm very excited that you're here. So let's go straight into talking about some different questions and things. But I think I'd like to start, if you don't mind, Brooke, with you telling me how power wheelchairs impact your life positively and negatively.
I can definitely do that. So I've been a wheelchair user for the last 18 years of my life. Due to an unfortunate accident, I forgot my keys, attempted to climb on my balcony, and fell backwards and shattered vertebrae in my neck and punctured my spinal cord. Before that, I should have probably paid more attention in anatomy class because I didn't realize that that was going to be an incurable, injury. So since that moment, I've been unable to use my arms or legs at all. So I can do a cool shrug, but that's about it. So now my wheelchair has really become an extension of my body. It serves as my legs and a tool with which I experience the world. It's really an inextricable part of my public persona. My wheelchair takes me places. For the most part, it's arguably the most important piece of my independence, and without it, I'm basically stuck in bed. So, due to the enormous role a wheelchair plays in my life, and anybody who needs one, it becomes a problem that we face systematic inequalities due to the fact that wheelchair options are really based on a medical model. There are standards that say my wheelchair really only needs to meet my needs in my home, so lack of coverage and policy leaves a lot of us with chairs that cost an enormous amount of money. A power chair ranges between $20,000 and $70,000. And a manual chair, just an analog chair, you might see someone that has a lower level injury. Those cost between $7,000 and $15,000, so kind of like a car, but unfortunately, a car that would have the equivalent of hand roll windows. The tech in our chairs is basically the same that it has been in the 1980s, with very few changes. And because of that, I'm excluded. A lot of people are. We face barriers to employment, transportation, just to keeping people involved in the community, and that is a problem, and it's one that I am very dedicated and others in my community want to change. So that's something we want. We want chairs that can actually help us be more safe, keep us more included, help us to travel more, to go to school, to connect with nature, and then just to be connected tech-wise. We have the options for connectivity in our world that we've all really gotten used to in this last year. We have smart things that allow us to connect, and my wheelchair isn't smart. My wheelchair is a piece of medical equipment that goes forward, backwards. I can lean back, but that's about it, and it shouldn't be that way.
You were part of creating this technological interface between the tech world and United Spinal, which is an influential organization. Can you tell us a little bit about creating that? That's fascinating to me.
Yeah, I can. It's been exciting. I really only, prior to this role, I worked on our policy team, and we did a lot of work in the tech space, but we really didn't have a consumer advocacy voice in the way that I really thought was needed. So in 2020, we launched our Tech Access Initiative, just really to close the enormous gap we see in inclusionary design. I may be talking about smart speakers and virtual assistants, transportation technology, but really in the end, those conversations always went back to, we need this stuff integrated into our wheelchairs. Our wheelchairs have such potential, and it's really quite lost at this moment. And the lovely part of our Tech Access group is that we also have a Tech Access Council, which is folks from the tech industry. We have Amazon Alexa, Apple, Facebook, Google, Microsoft, Teladoc, Verizon, Waymo, Uber, and Zoox, all joining these calls as direct voices, listening to our feedback and hearing what we're saying. And a lot of them don't know much about wheelchairs or some of the specific needs we have. So we have a really lovely dynamic where we are able to kind of use our own experiences and stories as feedback to share our ideas and really try to innovate and get involved in some projects that can directly affect our community in getting the tech they need.
That's exceptional. I know with my own daughter, Catherine, who's 20 now, but was born 16 weeks early, and she has cerebral palsy. And when we went looking, I went looking for solutions and couldn't find them, and I assumed I just wasn't looking hard enough. I even went with my brother to the International Seating Symposium to see what's out there and found that there wasn't, not only did it not exist, there did not seem to be an initiative to do that. because of the kinds of policies you're talking about. If there isn't a code and payment allocated to a thing, then they're not going to build for it. But you can't get that code and payment until you build a thing. So we had this sort of losing catch-22 for my daughter and her friends, and we were not content to wait her lifetime for them to sort it out. So we started LUCI. That leads me to you, Jared, to ask you a few questions about, is what Brooke's describing how you saw it as well, or what'd you find?
Brooke's description was better than I could do. When we first started looking at finding solutions for Catherine, there really weren't any out there. We were really surprised. There's some great seating technologies. There's some new colors, maybe some new tire patterns, those kinds of things. But as far as actually technology inclusion, there's so little available right now to wheelchair riders. And that's what drove LUCI.
Yeah, in our discussions at LUCI, we've talked about seeing the power wheelchair as a physical interface to the whole world. It's one of the largest expenditures, and it's a very important piece, as Brooke described. And so our goal was to try to build connections to it. And my wife is a big fan and follows Stephanie Thomas, and that's how I learned about her work. And I think the best way to start that is to ask you, Stephanie, to talk about how is disability portrayed most times, and what has your work been to change that?
Well, first, I'd like to echo what Jared said. I think Brooke did an excellent job explaining how antiquated most of the systems are. And I really love the way that she framed the idea of, disability still being viewed, not just, with wheelchairs or getting, assistive technology approved. It's still within that medical model. And what that does is in a way, it dehumanizes the people that are using the technology, because right now it's absurd to imagine us part of society not having any access to a cell phone. In our culture, there are societies that don't utilize cell phones. But imagine someone still using the phone, and they're not being able to communicate with people the same way that other people are. And that's kind of how I see the disability community. And I think as a stylist exclusively for people with disabilities, and as a congenital amputee myself, missing digits on my right hand and my feet, one of the things that I've noticed is it's really overlooked. Ableism is so deeply embedded in our society. We don't learn about it in schools. We're not taught about heroes within the disability community. And I don't mean the faux pas of the super crips. I mean, just in general. So the idea of disability is still very much being viewed through the medical model, through the clinical model. And I think that that's what has limited people's scope of seeing us as people that have lives and love and family and friends and want to get out of the house and just enjoy our lives.
Mm-hmm. Oh, I love that. And, we talk, you mentioned the phone. We talk internally about there was a time when just a phone that moved around was enough. And now the phone has become a platform for interconnectivity and interdependence that we all count on. And we wanted to try to do something like that. And I think we are with LUCI. And we're excited that you are part of it. I would love for you to talk a little bit, if you don't mind, about what you brought as a creative director to the images and the video that was created this was for announcing our company.
The one thing that I wanted to make sure that we did when you asked me what I thought about kind of direction of the video is showing people with disabilities in social models, meaning at the beginning of the video, you'll see a young lady at a birthday party, say, and she is thinking she's preparing to go out with her mom. So she has on a jacket, she's kind of prepared, and she's thinking her and her mom may go out, but then her friends are there with her, celebrating her. And it is not this apologetic, sorry, sad thing. It's like, she's cute, she's looking good on her birthday, and her friends are there, and they're going to have a party. When you talked about the technology with LUCI and being able to stop the wheelchair from going off a curb, I thought, is it more impactful to see the model in the wheelchair actually waiting on someone or just being there by herself. So the idea of having a potential love interest or a date meet the model was really important to me. But the one thing, Barry, that I know I fought for, and you probably got tired of me saying it, is I wanted to show that wheelchair users that use electric wheelchairs and even, manual wheelchair users can be ambulatory wheelchair users. That's just not a thing that people think about a lot. And I really thought it was important to show that the particular model, who was Lauren Spencer, I actually have worked with Lauren in other environments as my personal styling client. And so Lauren can stand with assistance, and she can walk a very short distance. And sometimes people don't think about that when they think about people with disabilities. And so I thought that was very important to show the full scope of the experience of someone who has a seated body type and uses an electric chair.
I was going to ask another question of Brooke here, because I feel like, when you're looking at representation in the media, Brooke, what are you seeing there? And do you ever feel left out of the conversation? Are there things you'd like to see in representation in the media?
Yes, definitely. I do. It's a common problem, and I love that you're bringing up the specifics of Lolo and the fact that you did demonstrate that she can walk a little. I am a high-level quad. I can, when somebody says quadriplegic, they think of me, but I have so many friends, they can move their hands a little. They might be able to walk. I mean, plenty of quads are ambulatory, and people say, no, that's, you don't fit the mold I see, and they're frustrated. And so, really, overall, we don't see ourselves at all. We settle quite a bit. Oh, someone in a wheelchair, that works. But really, the hardest part of being disabled overall is really kind of feeling ignored, misunderstood, invisible. It happens. And, I can say I try my hardest to be everywhere and be, but it's hard, especially if our wheelchairs are these big pieces of analog equipment that sometimes keep people from events, and media plays such an amazing role of teaching people about, the spectrum of humanity, and also just legitimately showing us what's available. I'll be honest, the amazing marketing work that Stephanie and the LUCI crew did is how I found out about LUCI. The fact that something that my tech access group had been talking about throughout the year, which is, we need sensors to, make sure we don't fall off curbs or our chairs don't tip, and we need to utilize AI, and why don't we have smart wheelchairs? Why don't I have why can't I say, hey, Google, or, Alexa, help me with my wheelchair? We wanted it. And I had no idea that this product was being made until I saw the cool advertising. And the editor of our magazine, New Mobility, let me know. He said, Brooke, you need one of these, because I am a little trepidatious. I use a head drive wheelchair, and it scares me a little. I've had accidents. I've had close calls. My chair has taken off in the past. I go up a little ramp to get in my van. I cannot see behind me at all when I'm driving my chair, so it's getting in and out of elevators is, I hope no one's back there. People really trust that I know what I'm doing with my chair, and they shouldn't always. So, I dream about something that's helping to improve my safety and make me feel a little bit more confident in that chair, because I'm a social person, I'm an extrovert, and I love being at concerts and events, but occasionally my chair really is the thing that keeps me from participating and holds me back a bit.
South by to me was the perfect place. Jared and I talked about it. For LUCI, we wanted to bring this message to this audience. I mean, you have people interested in fashion and film and music, but you also have tech and gaming and all these people, and now even in the virtual situation, maybe even more, coming to South by. Your group, what Stephanie's doing, and what we're trying to do are all about changing the way things are seen, changing the status quo, and building bridges to other people. We just spoke to a technology class at University of Washington the other day, saying to them, whatever you're going out to do and when you graduate, think of our team and the group of people we are representing here, and if you'll open a window or build a bridge, we'll be standing on the other side to connect to what you're creating, whatever it is, whether it's gaming or transportation or some other thing that I haven't thought of. Keep us in mind so that we can build a bridge to you too. We'll be building on our side. And so this is really exciting to have all of you here. Jared, as you began working on LUCI, what was driving you? What technologies were you bringing to bear? Or maybe even just quickly, what is a summary of the technologies that are innovative in this space that you've brought to LUCI?
Yeah, going back to the car analogy, maybe, if you go out and get a Tesla, which you can get for about the same price as a power wheelchair, you would expect that Tesla to have all sorts of safety features and technology and pair with your smartphone, all those sorts of things. And so we really stepped back and looked at safety and connectivity and as a way to increase independence for power wheelchair riders in multiple ways. And so LUCI brings a suite of sensors and adds them and a brain and connectivity to the power wheelchair. And so as we started diving into that, this is the beauty and the challenge here is a power wheelchair goes everywhere. And so if you think of everywhere you've been in the last several weeks, maybe think pre-COVID, the power wheelchair needs to go there. It needs to go indoors, outdoors, day and night. It also needs to interact with the modern world. Smart home, your cell phone, all of the things that you would expect. And so bringing the power wheelchair into the modern world, adding technology to it to make it really sort of a hub or an edge device for wheelchair riders.
I think a lot of people may not have experience with dealing with wheelchairs at all. Even people with doctors in physical therapy may only spend a day on wheelchairs in that education. I've asked several clinicians and experts why that is, and they say sometimes people, they don't see the wheelchair properly. They think in terms of the tennis, I've had surgery on my elbow and I'm rehabbing it back to normal, if you will. And so the wheelchair is different, right? Because it's going to assist long term in this case. And they maybe subconsciously don't think through it. I worry that in my songwriting world here in Nashville in the music business, that if I said picture a wheelchair, I worry they'd picture a hospital, shiny silvery wheelchair with that leatherette seat, or that they would make the error the other way and assume that these power chairs that are weighing 400 pounds and retailing above $70,000, that they have all the things they expect in their toaster and their bathroom scale and this ring I'm wearing or their watch. There's sort of an assumption, well, I assume that's all there because I have it in almost every device in my kitchen. I'm sure the wheelchair has that. But in reality, even adding a phone charger to a power wheelchair is normally a private pay item, and it's normally $400 or so to do that. And it's so there's been it's not as people picture it. So we were excited, I know, at LUCI to try to begin to communicate that at large, because as people become aware of something, then they can begin to see it in a different way. I was going to ask Stephanie if you wouldn't mind talking a little bit about when you're styling a shoot, how you go about that, what you're making sure is included, how you're thinking through those programs, because I think a lot of people would be interested in your insights into how you do that.
I was working with an occupational therapist who was assisting at an independent living space, and they wanted me to help with a fashion show. And I said, so what are the favorite colors of all the models? And you may be surprised or not, but none of them knew. And I said, well, why don't you just take a look around the room? What are the dominant colors if they're doing art or if you see things hanging? And one of the occupational therapists told me that she just never asked that question. She just never thought about it. I knew that I needed to take the questions that I've been asking people with disabilities, questions that I've been researching and learning about over the years, and create something that would act as a bridge to bridge the gap between where the fashion industry is and where it has to go to be more accessible. And those questions incidentally became my litmus test, my disability fashion styling system. I first trademarked it in 2004, and it's very simple. Is your clothing accessible, easy to put on and take off? Is your clothing something that's medically safe, smart for your health? And then, do you love it? Is it fashionable? Do you love it? Does it work for your lifestyle and your body type? And that's what I use when I style. I take adaptive clothing, let's say, designed for someone with a seated body type, something designed for little people. And then I combine that with universally designed clothing, human-centered design clothing with fewer fasteners in order to help people with disabilities build closets, full of clothing and accessories that they love, that they can use, and that honors their body type. I know it's a long answer for a short question, but that's my journey with it.
That's wonderful. And
it's a great answer.
Because there are, Zappos sells a line of adaptable and accessible clothing, and I know Tommy Hilfiger's done some of that, and Nike has some new tennis shoes coming out. And are we seeing a growth in that now, or is it still behind?
We are actually not doing more now. I brought this book, and I'm just going to hold it up. I'm going to be a bit of a blogger right now. This is one of my favorite books from 1979. And this book is by Dr. Adeline Hoffman. And Dr. Hoffman, she actually talks about the journey of Helen Cookman. And the thing about it is, if you look at this book, Clothing for the Handicapped, the Aged, and Other People with Special Needs. Now remember, this is 1979, so the language is different, but they had the same problem that we're having today. It's not new. This is not a new thing, clothing for people with disabilities. The problem is they had not been able to create a mass market. So everything Brooke was saying about having access to wheelchairs, but never having it updated, people with disabilities are considered less of a viable fashion, target group than pets. And hear me out on this. And I'm not saying this to be funny, but in reality, you can buy clothing for pets, booties, coats, jeans, things that are designed for their specific bodies, small pets, large pets. I've seen clothing for snakes. I don't understand that one, but I've seen it. And pets are considered more of a viable customer than people with disabilities.
It's interesting, you're breaking out of that echo chamber. You're opening it up to the broader world. And that's exactly, Brooke, what I see you doing with your technology access initiative.
We are still being left out. They're looked at as rehab medical equipment. So something that technically you should either, rehab out of, or if you can't, then stay at home. What are your activities of daily living? Your chair needs to serve those and nothing else. What I deserve is a command center that meets my needs out in the community and allows me to participate and feel confident in the world. It's very frustrating when the behind the scenes and the coverage is saying I don't need that. I don't deserve to have a seat elevation in my chair, which I had to fight for on my own. And luckily, I wrote my own.
Your letter of medical necessity.
Justification.
There you go, justification. That's exactly. So I brought my justification with me to my wheelchair clinic with my professionals. You go through the others, and I wrote it through.
A lot of people who are not familiar with this may be surprised to learn that you're having to, and I appreciate you sharing your own story in this, that you're having to write justifications for why you want to sit at the bar or go to a counter height table, that you're asked to do that. And I think, most people would be surprised and a little more than surprised, perhaps offended or horrified to learn that there's this dialogue at all going on.
It's an extremely slow process and one that I've lost sleep over. I've cried. I mean, new equipment is not, somebody may think, and it should be like buying a car. We're doing this. There's money here. Every 5 years, I can get a new chair. If my chair doesn't fit me correctly, that's nice. Make it work. Often I've never test drove multiple chairs. They kind of say, this is the chair that we think you should have. Especially in the beginning, I had no idea what I wanted or what was out there. There's not a lot of choices, but yeah, especially as a young woman, I've had really weird experiences with the folks that have worked as those intermediaries to get my chair, where it's been, I know what's best for you. You don't get a decision. I've had people say, don't think about how you look in a chair. Don't worry about that. Or me wanting something else and just being told no. We're often just told no. There's no coverage for that. Like you mentioned, Barry. Yeah, I had to fight for the seat elevation, and I originally my PT and ATP just said, no, you don't get that. You don't qualify because, like I said, that activities of daily living, I'm not able to use my chair to be independent in my home. But I said, I'm out in the world. I need this. It helps me to transfer into various height beds. I can look people in the eye. A big one. It's very nice when I'm at a show and I need to rise up and actually see the stage, rise up to find people in a crowd. There's so many reasons why this simple tool, a seat elevator, which and like I said, I'm very lucky mine went through, and I'm very lucky that they saw these things as important for me. Most people just get a denial on that. I have friends that have usage of their arms that literally can go rise up and go to their cupboards and pull things out, and they've paid out of pocket. An out-of-pocket payment is $2,500, I think, for that piece. I do not have lights on my power wheelchair, which is a direct message to me that the only way I could get those is to pay out of pocket, and they're more than $1,000. And it means you don't need to be outside at night. Why do you need lights on your chair? It's true. All this stuff it's really hard to know, but these are our realities. So yeah, people think our chairs meet our needs. Oh, you're a quadriplegic. That must be the easiest part of your process is getting a chair that you need. And no, it usually takes about a year of the time. Lots of back and forth, lots of justification, lots of no, like I said. And then one day my chair shows up, and hopefully, things are correct or at least workable. And I've been on many sides of that. And sometimes you're disappointed, and it's the pair of pants that I'm going to wear every day for 5 years, and no one's going to see me without it. And if I'm bothered by something, that's really hard because I have to bring that everywhere I go. And I don't want my wheelchair to be the thing people sees. I want me to be the thing people sees.
There's a clinician, Michelle Lang. She always says that she felt when she saw what we were doing at LUCI, she said, you've realized that the potential of the person in the chair is greater than the chair itself, and you're trying to elevate that technology to rise to be at the level and help that person in the chair instead of distract them or take attention from them.
Yeah, can I jump in? Just as somebody coming into the disability community, I don't use a power chair. I don't use a wheelchair. I have family members who do, and that's how we got here. I think it's been amazing how accepting the disability community is if you're willing to come in and engage and listen and learn. And I think a lot of the problem is, to a lot of people, this is an invisible segment of the population. They've just not been around wheelchair riders, and so they just don't understand. I have a picture of it. Building off of what Brooke and Stephanie have been talking about, there's this really interesting interplay here between sort of universal design of trying to make sure that a solution works for the broadest possible swath of people. And then there's this sort of individualized design, and you've got to find that right balance. And so a lot of people, when we started, as you know, thought we were doing an autonomous wheelchair, and we weren't. That's not what Catherine or the other riders we were working with were looking for. They're looking for independence, and they don't necessarily want their legs, their wheelchair. I mean, Brooke said, I wrote down, this is an extension of my body. And so having your legs take off in another direction for you is probably not the best feeling in the world, just like it wouldn't be for the wheelchair to do that. And so balancing that and keeping the human in the loop for this technology was a real focus for us, and something that took a long time. So, it was about a 4-year, I guess, process. 40,000 hours of testing, a bunch of work to be able to find technology that could work in this difficult world. So in that process, we ended up having to partner with other companies, working with Intel on their and using their RealSense technology, working with Texas Instruments and developing a first of its kind millimeter wave radar, our own ultrasonic sensors, because we needed to make the technology integrate into the chair and disappear. We didn't want it to be a focus. We wanted it instead to be something that was there for the user, something that enhanced their independence. And so that process of sort of iterating and working with users took a long time. And one of the things that I think we found that was unique was that rather than this autonomous system, actually capturing each user's reaction time and having the system keeps the world within their ability to react to it, so that the technology behaves differently for different people and brings in that individualization to what could be a really averaged technology. As we go forward and put more and more technology out there, and there are all these discussions about AI and different things, we have to really keep an eye on the technology so that it doesn't become normative by default. If you look at how an AI is typically trained, it's large data sets, which often means that the AIs sort of average everything out, ignore the outliers, ignore the edges. Well, the interesting stuff's on the edges, right? From data, from anything. And so as we develop technology, I think it's really key that we keep including a huge diversity of different folks, because that's going to keep the technology honest and keep it as a real aid and as something that enhances people's lives.
You talked a little bit about being seen as a consumer, and I thought maybe we at LUCI can be a part of acknowledging I see you as a consumer, and if I as a company or we as a company see you as a consumer, then others will communicate that way too. You'll be reminded that you're a consumer. And that led us directly to Stephanie saying, I want you to make this pop. I want us to see the person in the chair even more than I want to see the LUCI product on the chair. I want to see that person and their personality. And Stephanie, I really feel like you captured that in the different still images too that you helped design.
When I approached the photo shoot for LUCI, the thing that I wanted to do is I wanted people to pop out of the chair. So you don't see me doing a lot of black on black because a lot of the chair seats are black. So in order for people to see my clients, if I do black in the chair, I try to make sure that I have some type of detail with the upper body to draw the eye up. I wanted to also make sure that I use my styling system with everyone, meaning that if there was someone that, like Candace, let's take Candace, who's featured in the, Time magazine feature of you guys being, and congratulations for this, one of the top 100, is it innovations of 2020. So I just think you're welcome. That's huge. So one of the things that I was excited about is Candace had a dresser with her, and there were 2 jackets, and one of the jackets had an inset sleeve, which would be equivalent to my sleeve, meaning that there's no way to get in and out of it except one way. It's not very flexible. She was pulling on Candace, not to be offensive, but that's just the way that they always dressed. And I said, whoa, 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 whoa. I said, hey, if this is going to be difficult for you to get in, don't buy inset sleeves anymore. I immediately brought her to something that was a sleeve that is more of a drop sleeve. And she was able to get in and out of that without tugging and pulling on her body. I don't think that there's just should be independence in what you can choose to wear, I think the process of getting dressed should be done with as much dignity and independence as possible. One of my favorite brands, it's a Canadian brand, it's Coué Sports. They have the jackets that unzip from the sleeve all the way down, so that if someone is putting a jacket on someone who may be a quadriplegic or paraplegic and they have difficulty, but they have a dresser, you literally just take this jacket and put it on over the body and then zip it under here. And what may have taken a struggle, what may have been a 12 to 15 minute process is now done in less than 3 minutes. And so that's what I thought about. Not only making sure that they pop and you see them and their personality. We had Angela with Mr. Kenzo, the dog. I wanted to give Angela some color because she was really vibrant. Of course, Lolo likes to be out. She's an extrovert. And so I wanted to get something that really made her pop with the cream and the boots, because one of the things that I noticed that people pay attention to is when they look up and down someone with a seated body type, they always check out the shoes. So I try to make sure that the footwear is on point, and I try to make sure that happened for everyone. Ange in the red boots, the white boots with all the features on them, and all of the chains for Candace, making sure that Lolo had a really interesting boot. And the young lady that we had, I wanted to make sure, since when you sit, you see the knees, right? You really pay attention to the knees. I pulled something that had a really cute heart feature, since she loved the color pink and she liked anything that sparkled, had a little pink color in her hair. So I wanted to pull out their personality, because I think we don't do that enough when we talk about dressing people with disabilities. That we should all be able to dress with as much dignity and independence as we like, with and without a dresser. So that was kind of where my head was when working on the shoot.
That's awesome. Yeah, I just loved watching you work, and I love the images. We get so much feedback at the company, and thanks for mentioning time. Time was great. We came out in June in the middle of the pandemic, having no idea what that would mean. And so Time magazine and Popular Science coming on and honoring us at CES. So that's been an encouragement. I'd heard Lolo mention shoes, and of course it made me think of my own daughter, who is always wearing some sort of interesting shoes. What do you think about that, Brooke?
Well, so from my perspective, just a little intel on me. Prior to entry, I was working at Nordstrom. I thought my life, I was planning on moving to New York and being a fashion buyer, and I cared quite a bit about style. I liked dressing up, and when I went to rehab, they told me, you should buy some Converse, buy them maybe 2 sizes too big. Exactly what Stephanie said, sweatpants are great, no pockets, don't ever wear jeans, you don't need to be cute. They actually had to shave part of my head when I had my surgery, and I was mad. I was way more upset about my clothing options and what I was hearing about my future than I was about my actual disability, which is weird. But it was me. And really, it's all about learning. I had to learn, I can do this. I can wear cute shoes. These ones are easier. But a lot of people don't know that. So there's it's a correlation with the wheelchair process. In the beginning, I was clueless. I was young, like I'd mentioned. But I didn't know what to do. And we were kind of bullied into, getting a chair that I didn't want. I was stuck with that for 5 years. I've learned. That was really upsetting. And I had to, I learned. So I've been empowered in my fashion choices, in my wheelchair choices. Like I said, I wrote my own justification for the seat elevation. I know how to work things now, but a lot of people don't. And that's what we need. This is the kind of conversations we need to be having. And we need more of this and more tools to, make us visible and get us out there.
I mean, our test chairs at our facility, there's, a big warehouse full of test chairs, have the names of the users who had them on there with their stories, so that our engineers are thinking of the people, not the machine. The people. What are the people trying to accomplish? And putting the human in the loop there is how Jared describes it.
Absolutely. I mean, we didn't set out to start a company. in the beginning. We were working on Catherine's wheelchair. This was a project for our family. So then, transitioning from that into, okay, we're actually going to do this thing and it's going to be a company and we'll make it available to other people. It's been an amazing learning curve to take something that we developed for use in our family and then try and make that available and useful for everybody, for a lot more people. And this idea, I don't want to harp on it, but this idea of going back to the difference between autonomy and independence has been a continual learning process for us. One of our advisors, actually Gene Mccall, said, you've got to remember the dignity of risk. And there's a lot of truth to that. I think a lot of times it's really dangerous for people developing assistive technology. When I agree so much with you, Stephanie, really all technology is assistive technology. I mean, at its core, that's the definition of technology and maybe should be. But as we move forward, it's so easy to go, oh, well, this is for assistive technology for the other people, and therefore it's fine to limit in this way or that way. Or no, sometimes I do ridiculous things that don't make any sense. Sometimes I choose to do things the wrong way, the inefficient way, and that's okay. And that needs to be okay for everybody. And so it's so easy in these situations to try and lock down okay, well, this is assistive technology, so we're going to define it and have it work in a specific way so that the person can follow these rules, and then it will take care of this. And that's a horrible, horrible way to go around it. And but it's also really, really hard to develop technology and pre-think your afterthoughts, to pre-think what everybody is going to do with it. And so working with different writers and users over the last couple of years, we've learned so much and seen so many different combinations. And we need to just quit talking about this as an assistive technology, and we need to talk about this as technology for people.
But what's the future? What's the positive future? Cast that out for me a little bit. Brooke, what are you looking for?
I am looking for a wheelchair. I'm going to go with the wheelchair aspect of this, despite having so many things to talk about. But a wheelchair that is maybe modular or something I can build upon. I think it's really nice that your product is something that's coming to various wheelchairs. Often we're kind of stuck with proprietary, so you have a brand and everything on there is that brand, and we don't have a lot of choices. And just like fashion, we should be able to have accessories, and they should be available. So whether that's a colored joystick or a sparkly headrest. We should have choices, and these technologies, when you're talking about something like an Alexa or a Apple, whoever you want to talk to through your chair, which is amazing that we can do that. My home is full of virtual assistants. I have all of them. I forget which goes with which, and I call them the wrong names. Sometimes they give me little quips back, but when I leave my house, I lose access to that. I have my phone, but my phone isn't always accessible to me. It's connectivity. It's recognizing our community that needs to be able to get the heck out of the house and still have access to others and be connected. And wheelchairs are something that allow us a full world of exactly what we want and are a tool for that instead of sometimes actually a hindrance in that process.
I love that. Stephanie, tell us some more about the future.
I'm actually excited about the future of fashion as far as, even accessories with technology, everything from smart fabrics to the way that we can create prosthetic covers and just so much. But I think the thing that I'm most excited about really has to do with the impact of social media on educating people about who we are as people with disabilities, because that's really the thing that has made the difference. I know it's not the razzle and dazzle thing, but when you see people in wheelchairs actually transferring. When you hear people or see people putting on their prosthetic leg or taking or educating people, I think we have a PR problem in the disability community, not of our own making. That's, literally part of the definition of ableism. I see really a push towards human-centered design, more universal design, and really acknowledging seated body types. Think about it, pre-COVID and post-COVID. We have in the United States the ADA that makes it mandatory for accessibility, wheelchair accessible fitting rooms, ramps to get into stores. And then when you go around the floor, how many brands are there that are designed for people that have seated body types, ambulatory and otherwise? There's no retail real estate committed to that. So I want to see that change. And I think that there is going to be a shift towards that. But here in Hollywood, one of the things that they've done is, in order to even be considered for, certain awards with the Oscars, there are these boxes that have to be checked for inclusion. And disability is included in that, in front of the camera, behind the camera, in leadership. I see people with disabilities getting these degrees in fashion and becoming parts, heading up companies. Nothing for us without us. I really seeing an integration of disability into the world, and especially into the world of fashion and entertainment. And that's going to make a huge difference. I've been a voice actor for 23 years. And so one of the things that I do a lot of commercial VO. And what I've noticed over the years is, especially within the last few years, people have tried to keep an integrity with casting, not keeping out people, because we do take on characters, but opportunities are starting to open up more for storytelling for people with disabilities. And I'm excited about the stories that are now starting to be told about people with disabilities, including people with disabilities. So this is what's going to make the difference.
And I will say, for Jared and I, and at LUCI, one of our biggest excitements was when Popular Science, we got that award for invention, but it was in the engineering category. It wasn't a special category. It was in the mainstream engineering. And even at CES, it was health and wellness. And that was a big deal to us.
May I speak to that really quick? I just hope, if someone's listening to this that works, in production with these amazing tech companies, can we just kill the sad music when featuring disability? That's very helpful, because it's a little bit insulting. We are not your inspiration. No, let's just get some nice music, some cute clothes, or show their sport, show them as athletes. Stop making us your inspiration.
Oh, no, that's great. I appreciate it. And Jared, tell me a little about what you're seeing in the future of powered chairs or wheelchairs or whatever you want to talk about there.
Well, I want people to be jealous of Catherine's tech instead of be surprised that there is tech on Catherine's chair. So I think the chair I love Command Center. I think I may have to borrow that, Brooke. I think the chair becomes the hub. I think the power wheelchair and maybe the manual wheelchair someday becomes this interface for the physical world. I think it is a platform, and it needs to connect to the rest of the modern world. We should not be making proprietary special solutions. We should be connecting to the innovation that's going on throughout the world right now, and creating this platform for both mobility and health. I think it's sort of a joke to just talk about mobility or just talk about health, just like to say my smartphone is just about making calls. And so I think as we go into the future, there's the real possibility for this. Even more than that, I want to see this technology connected to the smart city and connected to the future of technology. I don't see why, in design, and when you look at user-centered design, there's this discussion of how do you find the places where there are sparks of innovation, right? And I think what people will discover is they're going to wish that they had been working with Brooke and Stephanie and the Tech Access group and all that, because I think there are so many sparks that people are missing out by not actually thinking bigger, thinking broader. And so I agree with Stephanie. I think the future is really bright. I'm excited about it.
Thank you for taking your time out of your busy schedules and doing this. And I appreciate it so very, very much.